Welcome to the Viking Age podcast, the official podcast of the VikingAge.com. My name is Schad. I'm a writer for the Viking Age as well as Zone Coverage and Bring Me the News. And joining me is my co-host and managing editor of the Viking Age, Adam Patrick. We do this every Monday and Thursday night right here on the Viking Age YouTube channel. We are also available in podcast form on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. So like, comment, share, subscribe so you never miss a new episode. And I'm going to lead off just by saying this show is so much fun to do when the Vikings are 7-1 and they're actually good. But you were telling me before the show you have something you want to rant about, Adam. So I'm just going to let you go. I have no trivia. I have no lead in. I'm just going to let you go, man.
I'm happy that the Vikings are 7-1. I really, really am. It makes me much happier on Mondays and everything else. But can we stop after every win comparing this team to Mike Zimmer's last 2 years? Like, it seems like after every win, Zimmer is trending on Twitter because people are like, oh, look at Zimmer would have done differently. Look at his terrible culture. And it's like, okay, we get it. He's gone. Like, they're 7-1. This team is clearly much different. They were clearly better off. It was time for a change. No one was arguing against, moving on from Mike Zimmer. It wasn't working out. But sometimes I feel like people just started watching this team like 2 years ago, and those are the people that keep bringing it up because Mike Zimmer was with the Vikings for 8 years. It wasn't because he was a terrible coach. So he clearly did some things right, especially in those first 4 years. Things didn't work out in the end. But I don't understand the constant comparison. I understand sometimes we look back and we're like, would Zimmer have made this decision? Would Zimmer, done this, done that? But like after every game, it's like, oh, Zimmer sucks. So glad he's gone. And it's like, he didn't really suck. Like the last 2 years were not good. Like, let's look at the players he was also working with the last 2 years. Let's think about that too. But like, let's stop, especially with like his son just passing away. Like, give this dude a break. Like, who cares? Move on. Just enjoy the season without having to go back in 2 years when they didn't make the playoffs and rip on some guy who probably doesn't even care about you. So like, let's enjoy the season that the Vikings are having right now, and maybe even look ahead to maybe what they can do. So that's just what's been bothering me. Like, it seems like after every win, and I'm like, why do we have to do this? Just why can't we? Like Kirk Cousins videos going all around. I've enjoyed those. Let's just focus on that instead of bringing Zimmer up for no reason.
It's like a bad breakup. Like really,
Yeah.
like when you're in a relationship and things don't end very well, you naturally compare
Yeah.
to the last person you were with. And I think that's a lot of Viking fans. I even did it a little bit too. I was watching the Kirk videos and being like, yeah, there's no way this happens last year.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was never, I never was on the train of slamming Zimmer now the last 2 years. Sure. Because I thought that it was just time for a change. Like sometimes, just like a relationship, you get in this thing where, okay, this is getting stale. We need to do something different here because this isn't working. And the two sides split amicably. And I mean, you mentioned that the guys had a pretty bad year, getting fired from Minnesota, having his son die. There's probably some other things we don't even know about.
Yep.
Like it is a little weird. I guess
it's mid-season now. Like I understand the first month of the season where you're like, wow, this is way different, like compared to then. But we're like, we're almost in the second half of the season now. We don't have to keep talking about last year, especially because they're good this year. Like what? Why are we still talking about years past? Like, let's go.
They win a wild card game. It's just like, oh yeah, I bet you they will. If they lose the wild card game, a lot of people will be like, well, Zimmer would have done this and Zimmer would have done that. And
I would never post something like that on Twitter if that happened. I would never ever do that.
Is that sarcasm?
Yes.
I felt sarcasm.
I don't know. I've just been getting Twitter in general has been super annoying recently. I've been trying to use it less and less, and I think it's been good for my health. So, yeah.
100%. I agree with that. You know what else is kind of bothering me? If we're going in this direction, I might as well just start here.
Hey, the Vikings won, by the way.
Yeah, they did. Let's start there. Let's start there
Okay.
because we can talk about my pet peeve a little bit later.
Okay.
And like I said, this show is so much fun to do when it's 7-1.
Yeah.
You got Kevin O'Connell giving everyone a game ball. You got Ziggy dancing around in the locker room.
Yeah.
Kirk Cousins is shirtless with all the diamonds in the world hanging around his neck. Like, how are you feeling about this team? Because I'm feeling pretty optimistic.
Well, like Kirk Cousins, I'm pretty jacked up about this season. He's having a blast. It's good to I see him and I'm like, this is I feel like this is how Russell Wilson would be if the Broncos were good. Everyone would be like, "Oh, he's so funny and like so like just dad like and everything." And because the Broncos suck, everyone's like, just shut up, just stop, including me. Like a couple weeks ago when we started the show off, like he's the most annoying person in the NFL. But Kirk Cousins, he's letting his guard down. He's on the field and off the field because he's not just putting the chains on off the field. Like on the field, he's taking more risks, and sometimes it pays off, sometimes it doesn't. And he's not getting spooked. I guess if he throws an interception, he's still kind of come back in the next series or two and try and beat you. His stats aren't anywhere close to what they have been in the last few years, but I think he's learning that winning feels so much better, regardless of what your stats are. So I think he's enjoying that. I think everyone on his team is enjoying that. You know, I heard this comparison today. It might have been Purple Daily or whatever, but they compared it to like Mac Brown or like an old college coach just like coming in and
Mm-hmm.
dancing after a win. And yeah, that's exactly what it feels like. We know Kirk Cousins isn't cool or whatever, but he knows that too, and he's embracing it. And I think it's great. They're 7-1. Like there is not a lot to complain about. Their only loss is to the undefeated Eagles, and I keep seeing people being like, is this team real? Is it 7-1? I don't know. I think the Niners are better. And I'm like, no, they're not. Like they're 7-1. Okay. That's it. They're 7-1.
I feel like it's a lot like Eli Manning. Like that's what it
Oh
feels like.
yeah.
Like Kirk is a lot like Eli, where he's just kind of a big dork. But I mean, like when you're winning with him, yeah, you love it. And like when you're losing, there's the Eli face or like the Kirk gritting his teeth or
Mhm.
whatever. Like those two are very similar, which is
Oh yeah.
interesting because Kirk Cousins is actually going
Yeah.
to be on the Manning cast tonight,
I
which
never thought I'd be interested in seeing that, but I'm pretty interested in seeing him go on there.
he was on McAfee too, and he was
Yeah.
hilarious. Like
Yeah.
they were at like Pat McAfee's like, "Hey man, you ever been strapped, man? Have you
Yeah.
always been this strapped?" And he's like, "Yeah, I've been strapped all the time, man. I did shirt off at spring break, man." And like, him and AJ Hawk are just yucking it up. It's like,
Mhm.
what is going on?
Mhm.
It's like Aaron Rodgers and Kirk Cousins have switched bodies. Like no matter what, like Aaron Rodgers did, everybody's like, "Oh, it's fine. We're winning 13 games." Like, yeah, go ahead and do your Panchakarma cleanse or whatever it
I'm gonna
is.
take it from you. It must have been the ayahuasca. It must have switched, spirits or whatever during that process.
It was just he inhabited Kirk Cousins'
Yeah.
body. Aaron Rodgers was
Yeah.
just sitting there. He wasn't going to actually go to the Vikings like Brett Favre
Yeah.
did. He was
Yeah.
just going to send his spirit to
Like
Kirk
some
Cousins.
Freaky Friday
And
kind of stuff.
yeah, exactly. I never thought of it that way. But let's talk about some of the good things that happened yesterday's win. The Vikings, of course, winning 20-17. It was not pretty, but it is a W. And my big compliment starts with Kirk Cousins. And that's that he got a big boy win yesterday.
Yep.
Like a lot of people on Twitter will fling around stats and be like, look, Kirk is a good one. This was the type of win I wanted to see from Kirk Cousins.
Mhm.
And Phil Mackey mentioned this on Score North that this was probably the best game that Kirk Cousins had in Minnesota, which is exactly how I felt watching the game.
Mhm.
Like, I just want to give him credit so it's not like mooching off of his take. But I mean,
Mhm.
Kirk was getting absolutely pummeled behind the offensive line.
Mhm.
His receivers weren't getting open constantly. The running game was non-existent. And he just got up and won the damn game. And even in his stats, 22 of 40, 265 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception doesn't matter. Doesn't matter because they got the win. And to see Kirk kind of just say, no, screw this. We're winning this game. That is the type of performance that we've been missing from Kirk Cousins since he signed in Minnesota in 2018. And I know, some people will point to the playoff game in New Orleans, which is fine. But I mean, this felt I will say it. This felt better than that playoff win in New Orleans. Maybe because I wanted to see the Zimmer regime and the Cousins regime end at that moment. And then Kyle Rudolph pushed off in the end zone and the Vikings won the game. This felt different because the Vikings feel like a legitimate contender. And if Kirk Cousins is going to go out and do that, and he can't do it every time, I mean, that would be unrealistic to expect Kirk Cousins to do it in every game. He's going to have off games. But I mean, if Kirk Cousins is going to start having games like this, the Vikings are going to be very good.
Yeah. I mean, they were down, 10 points? And I was oddly calm. I wasn't like, oh, game's over. Because I feel like
I was not.
Here we go. I'm comparing to the Zimmer era where I just had a rant about not doing that. But like if it, the past few years at 10 points, that's a huge deficit for a Zimmer Vikings team. But with this regime, this offense, they can score. They can, and within like a few plays, like they can get downfield fast with this offense. Dalvin Cook's catching one-handed touchdown passes. They got TJ Hawkinson just hauling in every target. He was huge yesterday. That was a great addition. It's one game, so I'm still, waiting to see how the rest of the season goes, but so far so good. But yeah, we've always talked about how we don't care about Kirk Cousins' stats. Like it felt like he was the only one who was like, got to keep my stats up. And maybe that was the case where like he didn't feel like he could get, that giant contract without those stats. But I think he's learning that if he wins games, he's going to get that contract too. So like, and he's, that interception at the end of the half, it sucks for his stats or whatever, but that's what people want to see too. Like there's 30 seconds left. You got 3 timeouts, just chuck it in the end zone. What you're giving up, what? Okay. You weren't able to get 3 points that Greg Joseph might've made. So I'm happy with the way they're playing. I'm happy with the way he's playing. I'm happy with the way that they just don't give up until really the clock says 0. It almost feels like they kind of have to be behind or tied to like get that extra gear going after that first drive, because they seem to come out every game like first drive. It's like, oh, these scripted plays are great. Like they know exactly what they're doing. After that, they get the lead and they're like, all right, let's have a couple of 3 and outs here. We'll mix them in here. And then third quarter was a dud again yesterday. After last week, they looked like they fixed some things, but went back to not being good yesterday. And then they got behind by 10, thanks to the referee. And then they were able to come back. And it just felt like they never gave up hope. And that's what you want. That's what you want in the playoffs. Like, because in the playoffs, you're going against these tough teams. You might have a 10-point deficit, and you need to have that, already built up confidence that like 10 points, 14 points, that's nothing. We can come back. Like, look at the Chiefs all the time. Like, they're down double digits all the time, and they're like, okay, great, we're gonna win. Still gonna win by 30 points. So who cares? So yeah, I like the way that everything's going right now.
That ref play, definitely interesting. I mean, I was going to have it in like the bad things, but I'll just talk about it now because I don't know. Like I joked on Twitter that it was targeting because he like left his feet and like launched himself into Cam Bynum.
He hit his shoulder.
It was so weird. Like it was just, there is no way like he was thinking, I'm going to run into Cam Bynum and like cause this touchdown. Watch this. Like, no, I mean, he probably saw the ball. I mean, it was probably just like anything else. You see the ball up in the air and you see it coming down. You go, oh shit, I better get out of the way.
Why did he just turn around?
Or like just book it towards the goal
like,
post or something?
Why was he? But like, no, like, why was he running back? Why didn't he just turn around? Like, why does he have to be right there to see if there's pass interference? Just turn around, man.
I don't know. It was just like a brain cramp or something.
It was.
Like, and it cost him a touchdown. That was unfortunate. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and it's a lot easier when you win the game after that. Like, if we lost, we would have been having like a coronary about the ref.
Yeah.
But, Jerome Boger's crew. Luckily, we won't see him anymore.
Terrible. But, I don't think they're going to be calling the Super Bowl this year.
No, I don't think there'll be any holding calls in the Super Bowl. Anything else that was a positive for you yesterday?
I meant Hawkinson. That was a really good debut by him. It seems like Kirk Cousins is already comfortable with him. I think I saw that he's already had more receiving yards in one, like a single game than Irv Smith ever had in a single game for the Vikings during his entire Vikings career. So that didn't take very long. Positives, I like that, Dalvin Cook was still able to be utilized. Like, they weren't running the ball very well. The Commanders have a really good rush defense, but they still found a way to get Dalvin Cook involved, especially on that touchdown, which was huge. And Greg Joseph, perfect on field goal kicks and extra points. So,
Were you
yeah,
nervous he was going to miss that field goal at the end?
for sure.
From
For
22 yards or whatever,
Like,
28 or
I think it was Chris Myers who said, like, well, they're going to run the clock down. They're going to figure out if they want to score a touchdown or a field goal. I'm like, why would you score a touchdown? Then I'm like, oh, yeah, Greg Joseph. Okay. But it's like a
it,
12-yard field goal, but still.
it's playing the percentages. Like, of course, as a Viking fan, I was just kind of like thinking of like ways they could screw it up. I'm like, he can miss wide left, he can miss wide right, the kick could get blocked, the snap could be bad, the center could have had Chipotle before the game, and he passes wind, and everybody's like, what did you eat? And the ball goes flying down the field. Like, all those little things could have happened, but it was playing percentages. I mean, that was like the analytics thing that Mike Zimmer never did, because it was, we'll score a touchdown and my defense will take care of it. Your defense is less likely to give up a touchdown with 13 seconds, no timeouts, and the ball on the 25-yard line than, I think Washington had one timeout left when the penalty happened.
Yeah.
So
especially half of Heineke's passing yards were on that one play with the ref, like pretty much. So they weren't doing anything.
I mean, it was just a smarter play. And I mean,
what about
you're trusting your defense either way, but you're putting your defense in a better situation if you just kill clock and take the field goal.
Here's a question: if you're the Commanders, do you let the Vikings score?
Yes,
because I kept thinking that. I'm like, why aren't they just letting him walk in the end zone? They're not going to get the ball back.
The Commanders did a lot of stupid things yesterday.
Yeah.
Like, overall, they did. And I mean, I think Matthew Collar was saying, the Commanders gave the Vikings this game. Well, the Vikings still had to make those plays, I mean, Harrison Smith still had to make an interception. They had to do all. Kirk still had to, put his big boy pants on again. I figured it out too. If we're comparing like who is Kirk Cousins, you ever seen the other guys?
Yes.
Will Ferrell's character in college, he's a pimp, but he doesn't think he's a pimp, but he's like explaining it slowly. And like eventually he goes down this rabbit hole and he's like sitting there with the knife and stuff. And like, then he just marries a woman and he has this happy little life and it's very secure for him. That is Kirk Cousins. They are bringing out, and like at the end of the movie, Mark Wahlberg basically brings out Gator, and that's how they, crack the case or whatever. Like, Kirk Cousins is basically turning into Gator right now. Like, by the end of I swear, I don't remember where I saw this, but I think Justin Jefferson mentioned something about getting Kirk Cousins a grill, which, yes, please. Oh, yeah. I need it. I need to see it. Just like,
they're going to get it. Zadarius Smith said they're going to get him his own chain for Christmas.
That
they're working
needs
on
to
it.
happen.
Yeah,
100%.
Yeah.
Kirk Go chain.
I just looked it up, and the Commanders had less penalties yesterday than the Vikings. The Vikings had 5 penalties, and the Commanders only had 3. But those 3 penalties were pretty
big.
Huge. Like, one was the pick 6 for St. Just, which was clearly pass interference. He was just hugging Justin Jefferson.
Yeah.
And then the other big one was the climbing over the center, which is like, what? Did guys just forget? Like, it's an easy rule. Like, don't go over the center.
Especially on a 22-yard field goal when it's like, this guy's probably gonna make it. I'm gonna be the hero. I'm going to get the block. Like,
and then you get the ball back with like 2 minutes, pretty much. But no, and they're like, oh, game over. The face on Ron Rivera is just like dumbfounded, like, what? Like, here we go again. But the Commanders play hard. I'll give them that.
They do.
With Heineke in there. Like, I don't know how they move the ball. Their pass rush, that defensive line is ridiculous. We're going to talk about the Vikings offensive line, but that pass rush, like, it's been known to get lots of pressure all year, so it wasn't as surprising. I think I looked up against the Bears; they had like 34 pressures. So that's a good defensive line, and they're going to get Chase Young back, and I wouldn't be surprised if they found themselves in the playoffs. It's going to be tough with like the Niners and Giants and Cowboys, but I could see them sneaking in there. There's a lot of time left.
Very quickly before we go to the negatives, I just want to point out to the Vikings pass rush. I believe they
Oh, yeah.
were top 3 in pressure percentage for Taylor Heineke yesterday. So Daniil Hunter had a couple of sacks right after I said maybe he's washed.
Yeah, he had a great game.
And Zadarius Smith had a really good game, although he had that face mask. Yeah, DJ Wanham. This pass rush, it wasn't doing much at the beginning of the year, but it's starting to find its footing, even without Dalvin Tomlinson in there. So,
the whole defense, we're like all that passing stuff over the middle seems like it's kind of non-existent the last 2 weeks. I know DeAndre Hopkins had a big game or whatever, but nobody else really has. Not that the Commanders are stacked at receiver or offensive weapons, but like I think this defense is starting to shape up. Everything is, and this is what we expected. Like they were good at the beginning of the year, record-wise, and we're like, they're only going to get better because they're still learning this system. So it's weird. It's exciting. This is like what the 4th time in our lifetime, me and you, that they've gotten off to a start like this. So we're not used to it. We're hoping for the best, but we also know that the worst is possible. So
this is like the Jason movie where the kids like decide to go into the like cabin again instead of the running car. Just like,
let's take a chance.
Yeah, let's do it. I will get to that. I am saving the best for last. But my least favorite thing from yesterday was Ezra Cleveland in particular. The entire offensive line. Maybe we could talk about that. Although Christian Darrisaw apparently had another good game from PFF. That is another good thing.
Yep.
Especially with Von Miller coming up on the schedule next week.
Yep.
That'll be get your popcorn ready. But Ezra Cleveland, let's talk about him a little bit. 29.4 overall rating. That was the 3rd worst among all offensive linemen in the NFL. He had 9 quarterback pressures allowed. That was the most in the NFL. A 0.0 passer rating, which would be great if this were golf, but this is the worst in the NFL as well. I think Scott Quisenberry, the center for Houston, had a 3.8 pass block rating. So that's not good. Kirk Cousins was pressured on 45.2% of his dropbacks. That was the 5th highest rate in the NFL in week 9. And it's basically Russian roulette in the trenches at this point because Garrett Bradbury, you don't know what you're going to get with him. Ed Ingram.
Hey, were you worried when he went down? Were you like, oh no, he's doing good this year?
It's so weird. Yes, I did a little bit because I didn't know what was coming up behind him. And I'm like,
I know I had to look it up
too. What's his name? Schlotman come into the game. And I was like, didn't he bungle a snap too immediately?
No, he had to delay a game. He didn't snap it until
delay a game.
The second play.
I knew he screwed up somehow.
Kirk was furious.
He was.
Snap the ball.
It was angry Kirk. Frick. How concerned are you about this offensive line, though? Christian Darrisaw and Brian O'Neill are holding their water, but that interior, more teams are going to try and find ways to attack it.
Yeah. As much as they're going to find ways to attack it. I think the Vikings coaching staff is smart enough to figure out ways to get away from just having Kirk drop back and just wait in the pocket too. I think they did that a little too much yesterday and came back to bite them. Also, like I mentioned, the Commanders' defensive line is one of the best in the league. I think I looked up; they're first in the league in quarterback knockdowns and percentage-wise this year. So they get to the quarterback and they're going to bring you down. They're going to. If Kirk wasn't wearing that flak jacket or whatever, or the rib protector, I'm pretty sure he would have broke a couple ribs yesterday.
Yeah.
So it's a good thing he wears that every game. But yeah, they got the Bills coming up. The Jets have a good defensive line as well. The Cowboys, the Patriots, these are all really good defensive lines. So we're going to see how good this offensive line is. I'll give Ezra Cleveland a break because I feel like he's been playing pretty good for the most part this season. And I also don't know how much of his failures yesterday were on maybe Garrett Bradbury being going to the right instead of maybe going to the left because Ed Ingram needed some help too. But Yeah, I'm going to give Ezra Cleveland a pass because he's been pretty good for the most part this year, and the Washington defensive line is pretty tough. But you can't play like that every week. It felt like like the Bengals offensive line where Joe Burrow's getting killed on every play because I feel like for the most part, Vikings offensive line has been pretty good this year. But it's on the road too. You can't hear signals and everything as much. You can't hear communication, so maybe that was it as well. But yeah, that's got to get better because it's not getting any easier for the next few weeks.
Ed Ingram is first in the NFL in pressures allowed, according to PFF.
Good.
Ezra Cleveland is third.
Oh, okay.
So,
Well,
I mean, yes, they're a very good run blocking unit. I think it was surprising they couldn't get the running game going. I mean, Jonathan Allen, if he didn't march into the general manager's offense and be like, rework my contract now, did you see what I just did? Give me more money. That if I were his agent, I would have called the general manager immediately this morning.
I think he's got the same agent as Adam Thielen. I want to say they're represented by the same what do you call it?
Agency.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember his name right now, but yes.
Yeah, I think so. But yeah, him and who's the other guy that's on the defensive line? Starts with a D.
Deron Payne.
Yeah. He's the one
Another
who just
Bama guy.
blew by Ed Ingram.
That's a hell of a strategy, by the way. Just draft the Alabama guys and just see what happens.
Yeah.
Especially
on defense. Defense seems to work out better than offense. Okay, maybe some receivers have been pretty good from Alabama, but defensive line guy from Alabama, it's usually pretty good bet. They're gonna be pretty good.
What other things concerned you in this game?
Kind of nitpicky, but can we stop with the tight end screens? Like, it never works, and they keep trying it like multiple times. Tight end screens is what you use when like it's 3rd and 1 in like the middle of the third quarter, and the defense isn't expecting you to call a tight end screen. And that's when you run it. You don't like run it as part of your normal offensive strategy because it doesn't work. It doesn't work with Irv Smith, doesn't work with Johnny Munt, doesn't work with TJ Hawkinson, didn't work with Tyler Conklin. Like, tight end screens just don't work. Can we just, if you want to do a screen, do one to a receiver? You got Jefferson, you got KJ Osborne, you got Jalen Rager, like all these shifty guys. Give them a screen or give Dalvin Cook more screens, but just enough with the tight. When has a tight end screen worked? Like, the best outcome is what, a 5-yard gain? Like, we've never seen a tight end screen go like 40 yards down.
Go to the house.
Yeah.
I think we would have remembered it too, because usually like the tight ends are big burly fellas, you know, like even like the David Njoku's, like super freak athletes of the world have never had a tight end screen. Like Kyle Pitts, probably the most athletic tight end in the league. Like they don't even throw to him, but that's another story. But I don't know. I mean, anything at this point, the receivers too, like
KJ Osborne's a little disappointing. I'll say that.
Yeah, Justin Jefferson had a couple of drops that I thought I should have had. It's kind of it's tough when Benjamin St. Juice is literally like hanging on your back the entire game. That's a little bit of a degree of difficulty, but Adam Thielen as well. I know he had one big catch. There were a couple where it was like just 1 or 2 steps behind. And I think there was even a crossing route late in the game where he made the catch and he just got tripped up by his shoelaces. And I thought, a couple years ago, he's probably, taking that to the house. So I think next offseason, and I know it's really early to be talking about this because the Vikings are 7-1. We should be talking about the present. Receivers got to be a priority, early, especially in this class where you have some guys like, give me Jordan Addison, give me Jackson Smith-Jigba, give me Keyshawn Boot. I just like saying his name. I don't even know if I'm saying it right. It might be Boutte. I don't know.
Well, in this offense too, you need probably 3
receivers,
solid receivers.
I hope they're calling Odell Beckham. They did restructure Brian O'Neill's contract, so they have a little bit of extra money there. I don't know if the Vikings beat the Bills. This is a pipe dream.
Is this the Odell Beckham game?
This could be the one. He's sitting down and be like, Bills or Vikings? Where am I going to go?
He's in the suite up top.
Yeah.
It's like, sorry, guys.
WWE style, just watching.
Yeah.
He's got this like.
He's got the two contracts on the clipboards. Does the Batista. It's like.
Power bombs Kevin O'Connell.
That'd be
Ziggy would probably be the best guy to eat a power bomb. Just him like, oh no.
No, power bombs digs through a table. There you go.
There you go. Let's look at the Vikings in the playoff picture to wrap things up here. We got Philly at 8-0. I don't know. They got to stumble at some point, right? I mean, they're not going to go 17-0.
Great against the Texans.
It's Thursday night football. It's a little, everybody's a little groggy in that scenario, but
I know they won. They've been, and they beat the Cardinals by 3. Like they've had some, and the Cowboys almost came back. They've had some. I'll tell you this. I looked up the strength of schedule or whatever. I think it was on ESPN. It's just like the strength of the schedule of the opponents they've already played. And this is the Vikings right now. They rank 13th. So they've had the 13th hardest schedule through 9 weeks in the NFL.
So about average.
The Eagles have had the 31st most difficult schedule. So much easier. They should be 8-0. So I definitely don't think they're unbeatable. I think they're playing. Are they playing? Oh, they're playing the Commanders next week.
Yeah,
I could see that being a sneaky upset. I could see it.
I think I saw it on Twitter. Somebody said they're not good, but they're just pesky. Like, yeah, I want to never see the Commanders again after this game. Like, if we played them in the playoffs, I'd be like, oh no. But yeah, they're tough. They're probably not going to beat you, but they're going to make you earn it. Yeah. I think that's a good way to put it. Seahawks 6-3. They're the 3rd seed. The Bucks are 4-5. They're not very good. The Cowboys are 6-2. The Giants are 6-2. And the 49ers are 4-4. And I'm terrified of the 49ers, honestly. I don't know why. Like, their whole team is so weird to me. It's like Kyle Shanahan. Everybody talks about, oh, God, he's such a genius. He's so smart. Kyle Shanahan is basically the kid who got the big Christmas present, and he just plays with the box. Like, that's basically what happened with Trey. Because, like, the whole Trey Lance thing, the entire offseason was like, they're going to unleash Trey Lance. And he's like, oh, I don't know. And, like, every year, like, the 49ers, their roster is awesome. Like, I like a lot of the players on the roster, like Debo, George Kittle, Brandon Ayuk. But then he does things like, oh, you were a minute late to practice. I'm benching you. I don't want to play with you anymore. Like, he's like a grown-up Andy from Toy Story who became a football coach. And, you hear stories like people are like, is Kyle Shanahan a good football coach? Be like, hey, is Kyle Shanahan a good football coach? He just seems like an arrogant prick. And as much as I'd like to knock him and the 49ers out of the playoffs, I don't want to see them. I don't. No. And I mean, getting them, the Vikings are going to have a home game to open up the playoffs. I was going to say the NFC North is going to be wrapped up here in a couple of weeks. But I mean, that's kind of it. The other thing is, where are the Packers? Where are the Packers? Oh, I found them. They're 12th in the conference,
losing to the Lions.
It's like they flipped. They are lucky Dan Campbell let them escape Detroit with their kneecaps. Honestly, like
they didn't. Rashawn Gary and some other guys too.
I mean, they were winning games, but they never. Like, I feel like the Vikings and Packers have just. You talked about Freaky Friday a little bit. Yeah. It's like they've switched positions.
They were 3-1, right?
Yeah. Or the Packers?
Yeah, they were 3-1.
3-1. Yeah, because they've lost a bunch
5 in a row.
Yeah.
Wow. What happened? Rodgers has been playing the whole time. Aaron Rodgers has been playing the whole time.
You know, and it's funny because they're just like, let's get back to 500 and we have a chance. And like the last couple of years, they were always winning games, but they never felt dominant. You'd always have like the game at Lambeau Field and like Cleveland would be leading. And then all of a sudden, like Aaron Rodgers would just turn it on and be like, oh, the Packers are so good. You know, I personally had great joy in watching Aaron Rodgers throw an interception and then scream like he was in the middle of a quick trip cooler.
Yeah.
Like that was like the kids up front are just staring at you as you're lugging around all the, you know, boxes from Quick Trip Truck. Not that I have PTSD from my experience there as a full-time truck guy, but that was a hearty like scream.
I think he was more mad at himself
both.
or
in that situation, in the situation I think he was in.
Receivers.
Like I think he was just mad at probably like several other things were entering.
Why did I not retire?
I could have just been sitting on a farm right now, just channeling my inner spirit.
Been in the rainforest,
throwing passes to something called Christian Watson. Like,
yeah, it's really fun to watch them lose. It's more enjoyable to watch them lose with him being completely healthy. There's nothing wrong with him.
Yeah.
Except for maybe his brain. But like he's fine. Like the only difference really this year has been no Devontae Adams, and he's not good on the Raiders either. So like it wasn't a win-win for anybody. That he left. But I want to get back to the NFC because I think the Vikings are right now they're second, and I would say they're at least top 3 because I think the Cowboys are good, especially with Dak back. I think when they sign Odell, that makes a big difference too. The defense is really good. You know, you got Anthony Barr back there and Jaron Kearse just holding down the defense.
Mike Patrick from SpongeBob as a head coach, though.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Micah Parsons is a beast. Trayvon Diggs always finds himself around the ball. They're good. And the Vikings get to play them in a couple weeks, so I think that'll be a big game. I believe Tony Romo and Jim Nantz will be on the call in that game, so kind of not looking forward to that call. But yeah, I would put because I think the Cowboys actually have had a harder schedule than the Vikings so far this year, and they won most of their games with Cooper Rush. So that says a lot about their entire team that they were able to do that. But yeah, the other teams like the Niners, I'll go over their strength of schedule right now. Their rank is 23rd. The Seahawks are 24th, and then the Giants are 27th. So like all this talk about are the Vikings are they a legit 7-1 team? And it's like yes they are. They've beaten everyone except the undefeated team that's been put in front of them, regardless of how close it's been or whatever. They've gotten the win, and there's a reason for that. So I'm getting a little tired of this. Are they for real? 7-1? Okay, 4-1. I'll take it. 4-1, 7-1. Okay, they're good. All right.
Here's my piece on this, and I've alluded to this a little bit. Like I listen to a lot of podcasts. You know, get some educated takes. I mean, obviously you should listen to this one first and foremost every Monday and Thursday night right here on the Viking Age YouTube channel. Like, comment, subscribe, and share. But you know, sometimes it's just kind of like you have like your podcasts that are like all the way like almost delusional type of content.
Yeah.
And then you have and then you have the other ones that are just like, you know, listening to it this morning and they're just like, the Commanders gave the Vikings this game and like they didn't do anything to win it, and like they're just going to fall apart and they're going to lose every game from here on out, and like Judgment Day is coming. I know how this story ends. All right. Like every Viking fan knows how this is probably going to end. It's going to be a Greg Joseph kick to the left. It's going to be a bad referee call. It's going to be a Kirk Cousins interception. Kirk's going to catch COVID. Whatever it is, it's not going to end well. But after the last 2 years, sitting here and just like, oh God, if we could only get up to 500 and like, if this goes right, 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 this, all these 27 different scenarios go right. Maybe the Vikings can win one. Maybe the Vikings can make a run towards the Super Bowl. It is nice. I will press my damn luck. If this team wants to be the luckiest team on the face of the earth, flip a coin and do it. Because you know what? about 5 years ago when the Vikings were probably the best team in the NFL, 13-3 going to Philadelphia, they got their ass kicked by the Eagles. And no Eagle fan has ever said, well, the Super Bowl is nice, but you know what? We beat Case Keenum in the NFC Championship game. They had Sam Bradford. Boy, we would have been – no, they shoved 38-7 in our face all the freaking time. So no, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and be like, I'm going to point out flaws. I'm going to point out concerns because I think that they do need to get shorn up. But I mean, to sit here and just be like, well, the Vikings can't keep this up. Shit, I want to see them try. I want to see them go to Buffalo and not piss down their leg like they did in Philadelphia. If they do that, I'm going to feel really damn good about this team.
Yeah, and if you know, a lot of those I feel like a lot of those talking points don't take into consideration enough about the other teams in the NFL or in the NFC right now. It's not like there's any team that's like unbeatable or unstoppable. Look at the NFC this year. It's not like that great. Maybe that's why the Vikings are in the position that they are right now, is because the other teams around them aren't that good, but still they're taking advantage of their situation. And like you said, after the last 2 years, which have been, you know, pretty miserable, and this year I don't even know how many people expected them to go to the playoffs. The fact that they're 7-1, they have a chance to get the 1 seed. You know, that's just, I don't think a lot of people, the expectations have already been exceeded, I feel like, for a lot of people. So right now we're just at the point where like, okay, let's just enjoy this. You know, we'd love to see them go to the Super Bowl and win it, but I don't think that's going to break anyone's heart. I'll probably say differently if they lose in the last second of the NFC Championship. But like right now, I feel like a lot of the expectations that we had for the Vikings before the season even started, they've been met. So everything right now is just like kind of icing on the cake. So yeah, I agree with you with like, let's just enjoy it. We don't get this a lot. Like I said, this is like the 4th time in our lifetime that they've been 7-1 to start a season. So it doesn't happen a lot. So let's see if we can, you know, try and enjoy it. And if they beat the Bills, now, Josh Allen, conveniently, his elbow is hurting. He's backing out of this Vikings game. Doesn't want to face the Vikings. We could see a Case Keenum and Stephon Diggs revenge game next weekend.
It's like WWE when you know, it's like Kirk Cousins and Justin Jefferson on one side and like Stephon Diggs on the other. Like, who will be his mystery partner?
Yeah.
Like, my God, it's Case Keenum. Case Keenum through the Minneapolis Miracle. Like, you know.
Now, you want to talk about luck, though. That would be a very lucky break, and I also wouldn't care at all if it was a lucky break that Case Keenum was starting for the Bills. This is the NFL. You need lucky breaks every week.
Who are the 2 teams in the Super Bowl last year?
The Bengals and the Rams.
And what seeds were they in the playoffs?
Were they 5th?
I think they were both. I think the Rams were a 4, and I think the Bengals were either a 3 or a 4. But what I'm getting at is those teams got lucky breaks on the way to the Super Bowl.
Oh, yeah.
Said if the Vikings want to luck into a Super Bowl, so be it. Yeah. Like, I don't know. I don't know if they're a good team. I don't really care if they're a good team. They're 7-1. So
they can be the worst. They can be the worst team to ever win the Super Bowl. I won't care because they won the Super Bowl. I don't care.
Even like PFF had their like roster rankings, and they're like, Packers have a better roster than the Vikings. I'm like, what? Your quarterback's washed. Nobody else can play, but yeah, the better roster. Like, I'm not gonna be like, some people are just like Jesse Pinkman and Walter White's house. Like, they can't keep getting away with it. They can't keep getting away with it. You know what you can't get away with is not subscribing to this YouTube channel. So make sure you hit that like, comment, subscribe button so you never miss an episode. We do this every Monday and Thursday night right here on the Viking Age YouTube channel. So for Adam Patrick, I'm Chris Schad. We'll talk to you on Thursday right here on the Viking Age podcast.